think Rocket is one of the most interesting characters in the MCU. I think the arc that he got from Guardians Volume 1, Volume 2, Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, then Guardians Volume 3 is very well done, emotionally powerful. We start with the first film. For most of it, Rocket's acting like a rude, abrasive jerk. But then when the Nova Corps are talking about where Rocket came from, we hear them say, Subject 89P1 free, subject of illegal genetic and cybernetic experimentation, planet of origin, half-world, known associates, Lila. Then we see these implants on Rocket's back. You get to the scene at the bar where we really understand for the first time, oh, Rocket's acting the way that he has been because he's broken and hurting on the inside and is acting like a jerk to hide how much he's really hurting. When you hear Rocket say, you just want to laugh at me like everyone else. Rocket, you're drunk. No one's laughing at you. He thinks I'm some stupid thing. He does. Well, I didn't ask to get made. I didn't ask to be torn apart and put back together over and over. Turn into some little monster. Rocket, no one's calling you a monster. That's very powerful. So you're like, oh, Rocket is hiding a lot of emotional pain, trauma, loneliness, self-loathing. And then at the end of the movie, Groot sacrifices himself. And then Rocket, the meanest and toughest Guardian, is sobbing. And then Drax comes over and just starts petting Rocket. I think it makes a lot of sense that at first Rocket stiffens up and he thinks that he's being treated like a pet again, but then he realizes, no, Drax is just wordlessly comforting him. Then you get to Guardians Volume 2, and Rocket is the catalyst for the movie. He's the one who stole batteries from these sovereign people. And at first he's unwilling to accept any kind of responsibility or accountability for his actions. But then you get to the end of the movie and Yondu calls Rocket out on his garbage. I love when Yondu says, I know you act like you're the meanest and the hardest, but actually you're the most scared of all. Shut up! I know you steal batteries you don't need, and you push away anyone who's willing to put up with you, because just a little bit of love reminds you how big and empty that hole inside you actually is. Shut up. I know the scientists who had made you never cared in the slightest about you. I'm serious, dude. Just like my own darn parents who sold me, poor little baby, into slavery. I know who you are, boy, because you're me. And then Rocket says, what kind of a pair are we? Rocket sees that Yondu is so similar to him, that Yondu also acts mean and tough to hide what he's really feeling on the inside. Yondu, like him, is afraid to show vulnerability out of fear that this is showing weakness, that other people use that against him. You get to the end, Yondu dies. We see Rocket is affected by this more than anyone. I love that moment. Rocket goes, he was always mean, and he stole batteries he didn't need. Rocket doesn't flat out say the words, I'm sorry, but that's clearly what he's saying here. And then you get to Avengers Infinity War, and clearly Rocket has matured. He's not as mean or abrasive as he used to be. I like that even though Rocket is confused by Thor calling him Rabbit, he never actually snaps at Thor for doing this. He realizes that Thor actually means this as a compliment. Then there's that moment where Thor is really opening up, being vulnerable, and Rocket is there for him, just listening to him. Shows a lot of growth on his part. And then you get to Avengers Endgame, and you can tell Rocket has matured even more. The fact that he lost all of his friends, and Nebula is the only Guardian left, that really has changed him. I love the moment where Tony says to Rocket, I thought you were a Build-A-Bear. If someone had said this to Rocket back in the original Guardians, Rocket would have snapped. He would have tried to shoot him, he would have yelled at him, but is that what Rocket does here? No, he actually just graciously accepts what Tony's saying. And then you get to Guardians Volume 3, and man, James Gunn did such a good job of breaking our hearts with Rocket's backstory. I love the part at the end of the movie where Rocket finally accepts that I am actually a raccoon. He not only becomes a leader of this new group of guardians, but there's that moment where Rocket sees all the baby raccoons in their cages. He realizes that is me. These baby raccoons are who I used to be. I'm going to save them. I'm not going to let them die. So this character arc is so well done.